Welcome to the Happy, Healthy Life Podcast with your hosts, Rob and Randy, who reveal the truth, the lies, and confusion about health so that you are no longer the victim to mainstream medical dogma and you are the hero to your own happy, healthy story.
Welcome back to the Happy, Healthy Life Podcast with your host, Rob and
Randy.
And we are
The Happy,
Healthy Guys. Today is going to be a fun episode, and it's going to be exposing what the weight loss industry truly does not want people to know when it comes to losing weight. Because if they did know this, the weight loss industry, not just the weight loss industry, but really the food industry itself would lose billions and billions of dollars.
Yeah, the whole foundation, once it crumbled, man, the house of cards is over. They really want you to believe it's a lot harder than what it actually is. And, you know, when you just go back to, you think about our ancestors, they just weren't obese and they didn't count macros. There wasn't a food pyramid. They didn't worry about any of those things. It wasn't even a real thing for them. They just lived off the land. They ate natural foods. They ate seasonal. They got outside. They laughed. They lived in gratitude. They just didn't suffer like we suffer today. So I think, Dr. Rob, we probably made it too hard, and the food industry knows exactly what they're doing.
Yeah, they absolutely do. And here's that lie. We're just going to give it to you right now. What they want you to believe is that weight loss is all about eating fewer calories and exercising more.
Yeah.
So what they really want you to do is just keep trying harder and harder and harder in doing the boulder up a hill. Who's that the story about?
Yeah, Sisyphus, right? In Greek mythology. And then what he got to do is push it back up again and let this cycle repeat itself over and over and over for all of eternity. That's really what dieting and cutting calories and living in the gym, that's really what it feels like.
That's 100% what it's all about. And if you've ever questioned that, just look around, and you can't even go to the grocery store without seeing people in the aisle looking at the box of food that they're getting ready to put into their cart or not. And they're judging whether they're going to put it in their cart based on how many calories are in that. You can't even go into a restaurant anymore without them listing the amount of calories that are in all the foods, because if they know that that's what people are going to be doing is counting calories. But what we know is that when you've been taught to count calories, what is now happening to the amount of nutrients that are going into your body?
Well, and that's the problem. When you count calories, a lot of times you disregard the nutrients. And like we've always said, stop counting calories, start counting nutrients. I just ordered some Icorn. It's an heirloom grain, Icorn sourdough crackers. And there's only 2 ingredients. It's basically the Icorn flour, the heirloom flour, and it's got pastured butter. And it was sprouted, so it was fermented, and they made crackers. So it's 2 ingredients, and there's no calories listed on the package from this small farm out of Pennsylvania that I ordered from. And so I didn't care about how many calories this product had. I wanted to know, what are the ingredients and what are the nutrients? And when you eat real food, when you eat single ingredient food items, now you're getting back to what our ancestors did. They weren't counting points and calories. You know, they weren't moving things around to manage macros. They didn't have macro apps. All they did was eat real food, and they were eating food that would sustain them. And that's what the industry has moved us completely away from. And if you even think about this, can you imagine, you know, you're depleting all of your calories, which, by the way, when you cut your calories, your metabolism, which controls what you weigh, it completely shuts down and slows down. And so that's why you have so many people that you can lose a little bit of weight by cutting the calories. But what you're really doing is starving your body of nutrients. And so ultimately, when you're not perfect anymore, and we know nobody is, anything built off perfection will fail. That's why all of the weight comes back with a vengeance, because your body's still craving nutrients in order to thrive and fuel a healthy metabolism.
And even if you go back to a couple of episodes ago, we were talking about the chiropractic principle, and we were talking about innate intelligence, or you could even call it the God wisdom that's on the inside of your body that already knows how to heal. And that's why you always have to remember that your body is not a mathematical equation.
No,
it's not like you just put this many calories in and here's what's going to happen. It's what is your body doing with the nutrients or the quote calories that are going into your body? Does it know how to properly and efficiently turn that into usable energy that's going to be used inside the Krebs cycle, is where that energy is really coming from inside the body. And if the body and the innate wisdom that's trying to do that all the time can't do it, typically it's being blocked.
Yeah.
There's interference somewhere in the system, and that's what we're talking about. And so that right there is why when the diet industry or the weight loss industry is trying to tell you to cut calories or to exercise more, it's never going to be a good solution for you. And you're always going to be having to try harder because the body simply doesn't work that way. It doesn't know what to do.
Yeah, and you don't even have to know the science about any of this. I always get a little bit nervous when we start talking about pathways and cycles and hormones and different types of physiology in the body. You really want to try to stick with what you can actually see. And here's what I know: when you see people eat real food that's nutrient dense, that's in its most simplistic form, that's the least amount of processing, and when they just move their body naturally with the rhythms of life, of picking up, getting up, walking, doing just basic things, you see those people are very, very healthy. There's an order of all the people probably that you've hired or you've followed their Instagram page, you've looked at all of their stuff, all these influencers and these nutritionists and dietitians and people who look perfect. You've got this really long list of all these people. The person at the top of the list would really be our friend Giovanni, who we met in Sardinia. It's the old Italian guy who's in his 90s, who hasn't ever counted 1 point, ever. 1 calorie, who walks everywhere, who's out in the sun, who's eating nutrient dense real food. Doesn't matter if it's vegetables, if it's proteins, if it's fats. You don't have to worry about any of that. He just lives life beautifully, simplistically, and he doesn't have multiple degrees or understand the basic physiology of what's happening when you eat food. You give your body real food and you live closer to nature the way our ancestors did. You don't get the same problems that we get today because they didn't have these same problems. They weren't riddled with chronic disease. They weren't depressed. They weren't obese. They didn't take medication. I mean, how many times we meet people in other parts of the world that are living that way? The medical system isn't really a big part of their longevity strategy because clearly the medical system is only for crisis. It just isn't for health. And kind of that food, diet, caloric restriction, guilt, perfection, medical model, it's kind of all tied together because it has that control where it beats you down and makes you a victim. And you never really get off that treadmill if you don't break free and realize that it isn't as hard as you think and you have more agency than you believe.
I feel like that's one of the hardest things for people to be able to unbrainwash themselves about because they've been taught that so many different times. I can tell you how many times we speak all over the world when we ask people what is it that determines how much you weigh, and it seems like everybody always says diet, even after we've been speaking to them for about 20 or 30 minutes, and they still come back with diet. And I think what happens with these folks, like we're talking about, like Giovanni from Sardinia, here's what we know about him is that he has a really great metabolic thermostat.
Yeah.
And let's talk more about the metabolic thermostat, because that's why that lie that they're trying to teach us with the calories in and calories out doesn't work, is because you're trying to teach people how to lose weight on a poor metabolic foundation or with a bad metabolic thermostat.
Yeah, the Sisyphus all over again, right?
Yeah.
Pushing the boulder uphill versus rolling the boulder downhill, where it is effortless and you're not, because Giovanni's not thinking about his weight, right? He's not thinking about any of this, but he's doing things innately that are a part of his culture and the way his ancestors all lived that has him in a very strong metabolic thermostat state. So yeah, let's dive in, because we don't all live in Sardinia. Yeah. We don't get 327 days of sunshine everywhere in the world like they do. What do we do here, stuck maybe in a city or inside or in a world where maybe we don't have access to the things Giovanni has? How do we do that here? What does that look like?
Yeah, it looks like our thin method. So THIN is an acronym that we use whenever we're teaching people about our system. The T stands for metabolic thermostat. The H is hormone balancing. The I is internal cleansing or detoxing your body.
Mm-hmm.
And then the N is nutritional intelligence.
Yeah.
Okay. You have emotional intelligence, you've got nutritional intelligence. There's certain foods that your body needs in order to be able to be metabolically active. And that could actually even change because your body is this innate, it's got this innate wisdom already in it that God's put there to be able to heal. So let's talk about then with this thermostat. And I guess some of the most common things that could interfere with its ability to be able to keep your body regulated, just like a thermostat would regulate the temperature on the inside of your house. If it's set at 70 degrees, doesn't matter how hot or cold it is outside, it's always going to stay at 70.
Yeah.
So our body is the same way. So you could have a poor metabolic thermostat or poor setting on the thermostat.
Yeah.
So it could be set like I used to be set at 185 pounds,
Right.
which means that no matter how much I quote dieted, like we're talking about the calories in, calories out and exercise, that if I stopped being perfect, my weight would always go back to 185 pounds.
You got it.
So what are the things that could have been blocking me? Well, I know what they are now, but let's just take a hypothetical person that is stuck. Their metabolic thermostat is set at a place that they don't want it to be at.
Mm-hmm.
What are some reasons that could have caused it to be set at a place they don't want it to be at?
That's a good question because you nailed it. It really is a zero-sum game. Really, after all the dieting and the caloric restriction and the supplements and the peptides and the GLP-1s and all the things that people try to do, when all that dust settles, you end up right back where you were or worse. So there's a lot of things that can do it. And it's not ever one thing. It's a lot of things. But one of the biggest reasons is people are eating processed fake food. It's all for shelf life. It's hyper palatable. So it maybe tastes good and stimulates hunger, but it doesn't supply the body nutrients, which is why like artificial sweeteners may give you that sweet taste, but it tricks the brain and the body and there's no nutrients there. And so it creates more hunger. The industry knows this. And most of the processed food that we're eating creates more hunger, from the processed grain to the processed sugar and to obviously the industrial seed oils, which omega-6 fatty acids, linoleic acid, causes severe hunger. You know, it triggers that same part of the body, the cannabinoid system in the human body, in the small intestine and the duodenum, where you actually increase hunger. One of the, they say if you smoke weed, you get the munchies. It's that same system that you're triggering. So eating fake processed food is going to trigger hunger. It's going to disrupt your metabolism. And over time, now listen, could you get away with that every once in a while? Well, of course you could. But over time, you think about weeks, months, years, 5, 10, 15, 20 years, you've done real damage to your metabolism, and your body is smart. So it's going to readjust your thermostat, because if you're toxic, your body's going to slow your metabolism down to store and make more body fat to protect you, to move all the toxic chemicals into the body fat. So your body's not doing the wrong thing. It's doing the right thing based off the lifestyle you chose to protect you. And that's why a lot of people end up with tons of stubborn body fat, Dr. Rob. Their body's toxic. They've wrecked their metabolism, and their body had to readjust their metabolic thermostat, which is why what you said earlier, a part of the THIN method is internal cleansing. It is detoxing from industrial seed oil, which, by the way, has a 2 to 3 year half-life. So it's not just like you eat French fries and get away with it. It's almost like you're making a 3-year commitment to this nasty toxin that gets stored in your tissue and downregulates your metabolism.
Yeah. So a practical thing that is, if you're listening to what Dr. Randy just said, a practical thing is it would be just stay away from putting those seed oils into your body.
That's step one.
That's step one. And then step number 2 is then you got to remove them, because just like he said, it does have that 600-day half-life, which means that it's one thing to avoid it, but if you ate them 3 weeks ago, they're still in your body, and you got to get them out, because if not, they are disrupting your body's metabolic thermostat and ability to be able to regulate where your body's metabolism is. And that'll make it harder for you to lose weight, which is also another reason why, as people get older, that it's harder to lose the weight, because they just had more time to be putting these toxins in their body and disrupting their body's metabolism.
Yeah, it was that bucket, right? You just kept filling that bucket over 5, 10, 15, 20, 30 years. And now it's overflowing. And then all of a sudden, like this diagnosis happens, and it didn't come out of nowhere.
It's not just because you got older.
Yeah. The age is just guilty by association. It's like blaming the fireman for being at the scene of a fire. But, that's where we saw with Giovanni over there in Sardinia, their longevity fat was lard. They obviously had clean olive oil, but it wasn't really olive oil. It really was lard, animal-based fats. You didn't see seed oil. They weren't cooking in it. They weren't using it. Lots of raw cheeses, lamb, beef, sheep. I mean, it literally was eating more animal-based saturated fats. They weren't eating seed oil, and they weren't thinking, hey, we're not going to eat seed oil. It's just not a part of what they do. So I think that's a huge thing. We didn't see them ripping open packages of chips and crackers, pulling through McDonald's. It was real food. They're local, and they weren't thinking about anything, and they definitely weren't counting calories.
Yeah. So innately, they were also then giving their body or creating a better metabolic environment, to be able to create more adaptation to a lot of those different things. And so that's why one of the things that we do through our system is help people to be able to improve their body's innate ability to be detoxing themselves. Yeah. So that's why, a lot of people say that we're magicians, and it's magic what ends up happening over true. 5 weeks. We've got people that lose 33 pounds in only 5 weeks. And a lot of it is because all we're doing is we're teaching the body how to do again what it was designed to do from the very beginning. And that's where that magic happens. But you don't necessarily have to go through our program to experience a lot of the benefits that we're talking about, because some of those benefits are things that you can do for free.
Yeah.
Like even getting plenty of sunlight is automatically going to help to detox your body. And I think the sun has been vilified.
Of course it has.
As if it's a bad thing, that God created the sun and we shouldn't allow ourselves to be outside and in the sun. I love being in the sun. There's nothing like just stepping outside and facing the sun. You can feel it just cleansing your body. So that's a good thing that people can do.
Yeah. Go back to nature. What do animals do? When the sun's out, they lay out in the sun. Heck, there's a path I walk on by a creek, and you see turtles all lined up all along the banks, not in the shade. They're out in the sun because the sun really is it charges our battery. It is so vital for us to get sunlight. In fact, getting sunlight into our eyes, we've talked about that photobiomodulation, where you light up your mitochondria. 2/3 of our cellular requirements for energy to move that through the body is coming from the sun. We are electrical beings. That charge, that voltage, that light. We've talked about how the biohacking industry is inventing all of these technologies, and it's just mimicking light, sound, frequency in the sun. And you can get that. And Giovanni over in Sardinia and the Sardinian people over in Italy, they're in the sun, and that sets their circadian rhythms, which is tied to how your body metabolizes throughout the day, because your metabolism goes through different phases throughout the day. We talked about being more insulin sensitive in the mornings because your body now has gone through a fast. Cortisol is higher. You're releasing stored glycogen for blood sugar. And so it's the perfect time to restore your body's glycogen needs by giving your body easily digestible food and carbohydrates, fruit, honey, local things that you can eat there. But that's all part of those rhythms that you get from being outside, being in the sun, getting your feet on the ground, go hug a tree, get your bare feet on the ground, get sun in your eyes. Things that are free, by the way, that are more powerful than anything, because then you're setting yourself up to now sleep better at night, where if you prioritize sleep, getting out in nature, eating real food, those three things right there, if you just prioritize sleep, you reconnected to nature more, got more light in your eyes and on your body, and you ate real food, single ingredient food items, those three things right there, that's worth millions of dollars, and it doesn't cost that much, and everybody can do that, and everybody has access to that, and it's way cheaper to eat real food when you start thinking about your grocery bill and all the crap that we buy and put in our cabinets. Go eat real food. You'll be way more conscious too, because if you don't eat it, it'll go bad. So it's powerful. always find that apple that's breaking down, that's already starting to go back because you know it's a good one. Just cut off the bad spots.
Yeah, I was getting ready to travel this afternoon. I was looking and going, okay, what are the things that need to be eaten today?
Yeah,
because it's going to go bad by the time I get back. Okay, we only have a few minutes left.
Yep.
So I think let's give maybe something that's on your heart right now, or something that you've been thinking about would be the one thing that somebody could be able to do in order to be able to have a good, healthy metabolism. And I'll talk about what mine is right now.
Okay.
And it can change because we're innate, right, beings, and it doesn't mean that everything is exactly the same way every single day. But I think mine right now is, and this has happened as a result of going through our thin method in our program as many times as we have. What it's done for me that I didn't used to have before, it's given me an ability to really hear what my body is saying to me.
Okay, I like it.
And listening to my body. And I'll give you an example. In the past, you knew me as being someone who every Sunday to Monday would always do a 24-hour fast.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, it's been a minute since I've done that. And I woke up today and I said, you know what? Today's that day.
Right.
I'm listening to my body as a result of eating foods that I probably maybe would not have ordinarily eaten over the course of the weekend. I could feel my body saying, today is the day that you need to do a 24-hour fast. Okay. So I didn't do a 24-hour fast today because I do it every Monday. I did it because it was what my body was saying to do. So I think if you can get metabolically healthy, it gives you a better ability to be able to listen to hear what your body is saying. So all that to say is listen to your body and what it's telling you to do.
Yeah, we can get so structured and rigid, and it can actually become very stressful.
Yeah.
When you're trying, I even remember back in the day when I used to realize I did count a lot of the macros and the calories and the protein and the carbs and the fats. And I was like really consumed with trying to eat this perfect lifestyle diet. And I'm more free now to not have to think about those things, because I am more intentional. I'm always, when I'm eating, I'm thinking, how do I just eat something that's in its most natural, unadulterated, most nutrient dense form? That's why I love raw milk. I love eating raw fruit. I love eating animal based. I love, lots of good ruminant animals, and I love raw cheeses and all those things. So I'm thinking about eating real food, and then I'm eating until I get full. And so I would say the intentionality of how we eat is choosing real food because you want to nourish your body, enjoying it, not counting anything, eating it. And then if you eat real food and you chew real food, you will get full, and then stop eating. And then when you're hungry again, start eating again. It's not about having to eat 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2. It's not about how many times a day you eat. There really isn't a reason to eat more than 2 or 3 times if you're eating real food. But if you eat real food, your body will trigger satiety hormones. You'll stop eating. And then when you're hungry again, pick more real food. And so it's very freeing. So I would say don't get stressed. Don't make it complicated. Enjoy eating great food. Enjoy carbohydrates. Enjoy fats. Enjoy proteins. Just make sure that you're picking foods that are real, closest to nature, the things that our ancestors ate, the things that would get the stamp of approval from our good friend Giovanni, right there in one of the longest living blue zones in the world in Saulo, Sardinia, where the average age of people in some of those villages were living to 89 years old on average with no chronic disease.
I love it. There you go. So that right there is how you avoid the biggest lie ever told by the food industry right there. So eat with intention and live a longer, happier, healthier life. So thanks again for listening to the Happy Healthy Life podcast. Make sure that you share this, rate it, review it, all the things out there. And thank you so much for your support.
Yeah, thank you guys.
Thanks for listening to the Happy Healthy Life podcast. If you enjoy the show, make sure to follow them on Instagram at the H2 Life, or on YouTube and Facebook at the Happy Healthy Guys. Don't forget to like, subscribe, follow, and review the show wherever you listen to podcasts.